Welcome to the Brand Lincoln Podcast, the show where we dig into the stories behind Lincoln's most inspiring business owners and influential people. It's where big ideas and even bigger personalities collide. Proudly sponsored by Perch Merch, your one-stop shop for screen printing, embroidery, and promotional products that make your brand unforgettable. Call us at 402-217-5212 or visit us at perch-merch.com to give your business the glow-up it deserves. And don't just listen, be a true multitasker. Like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're tuning in on. And check us out on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Brand Lincoln Podcast. We're basically everywhere you waste your time. Let's get inspired, Lincoln. The stories start now. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Brand Lincoln. I'm your host, Chris Beecham, and I'm only joined today by my co-host, Joe Cruz.
Yes. Hello. You're welcome.
You just got elevated to co-host, just like that.
Well, I should be higher than just co-host. Henry's not even here today.
Yeah, but Henry's co-host. You were your ex-producer now.
Oh, that's okay. That's right.
Maybe someday
I
you
got to
get it back.
update my business cards.
Okay. Anyway, so joining us today in the Perch Merch studio is Leigh Esau with Foster Care Closet. Hi, Leigh.
Hello.
Okay, tell us what Foster Care Closet is.
Well, first let me start by saying thank you for this opportunity to share with your audience. Foster Care Closet is a statewide organization. We serve all the way out as far west as Scotts Bluff and north as far as Norfolk at this point, and then all the places in between coming down I-80. We are passionate about restoring dignity to youth in crisis, and the way that we do that is by providing 5 complete new outfits of clothing to youth who are in our foster care system.
Okay.
All right.
5. Okay.
Each day of the week, school week, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
the thinking of the idea of it, or?
Well, it actually comes from the standard that the state of Nebraska set in their procedures and policy. My husband and I had fostered for about 13 years, and during that process is really when the vision of the Foster Care Closet was born. And we're very lucky here in Nebraska that our state says that youth should have a minimum allotment of clothing for the time that they spend in care. Believe it or not, there are states out there that do not have those kind of requirements. So for example, if a youth comes into care in the state of Nevada and say it's the middle of summer and they're at the pool, the only thing they enter the foster care system with is a pair of swim trunks or bathing suit. There is nothing in their requirements that says they have to have more than that.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So I want people to understand how lucky we are that Nebraska says, no, there will be a minimum standard to which foster parents are accountable for providing for youth while they're in care. So that's where the 5 outfits comes from.
Okay, I'm just going to go back here. So when a child first enters foster care, they just go usually with their clothes on their back?
That is correct. Probably 99% of youth who enter foster care enter with just what they happen to be wearing.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of times they're removed right after school or maybe at the end of the day in a daycare setting. So it's not necessarily a situation where they're running in at 2 o'clock disrupting school. They're letting the day play out. And then, the school is probably aware this is going to happen. And so that's one of the reasons that's behind why youth enter care with just what they're wearing.
Oh, I had no idea. I pictured, okay, pack your bags. You're going to go foster care.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
If they have bags to pack.
Yeah. Sometimes that's an option. However, most of the time, kids don't have clothes to pack.
Oh my gosh.
Or if they do, they're not appropriate. An example of that would be when we were fostering, we had a sibling strip of 3 that came to our home, and it was mid-March. So out on the racks at the store is all spring summer clothes. But we had happened to have, that was a year that we had a lot of snowfall in the springtime. Those kiddos showed up at our doorstep with a spring jacket, short sleeve shirt, pair of Crocs, pair of jeans. No socks, no underwear. And the little one was a baby, and the baby was only had a diaper and a sleeper. That was it. There was no extra diapers packed. There was no formula, none of that. So that's really where my husband and I were like, there's just got to be a better way. And so that's kind of where this whole story started. But it has definitely evolved. We're in our 19th year now of serving.
Got it.
So when we first started, it was really with a focus on how to help foster parents say yes. Because we knew that there were foster parents out there who were willing to take in placements, but they didn't have the checkbook to run to the store to buy all the stuff. And so what we wanted to do was lower that barrier. How can we help more people be able to say yes? Because they have the room and they want to do it. And so that's how we started our mission. Over the last 19 years, it has really evolved, and it has gone from an adult-focused service to a child-focused service. And I'm happy to explain that process if you care.
Yeah, hold on.
The ambulance driving by, fire truck.
I can't get that out. They're always ruining something. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So I guess you did come up with, oh my gosh, what's the, let me redo that. Foster care closet. Okay.
Well, you got to redo it from the beginning. That's your problem.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to redo it. I'm going to redo it right now. So you did come up with the foster care closet initiative. Like it was your brainchild that
Because you were a foster parent, you were going through this. Is that?
That's a part of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I would think being a foster family is kind of difficult. It takes a lot of patience and things I don't have in life. But then you add the financial thing on top of it and clothes, and you got to do this and you got to do that because they're coming to you with nothing.
Right.
So what were the steps of getting it launched, thought up and launched and put together? And
Yeah. So part of it is because of my experience as a foster parent, but the other part, and this is really where the evolution started to take hold, is I was once one of these kids. I spent the first 7 years of my life in foster care. And as we fostered over those 13 years, what I learned was that there was no difference in how kids today are entering our foster care system than when I entered
oh wow,
foster care.
so 30 years, nothing had changed.
A little more than 30, but that's okay. 25 again. No, I'm very proud of the fact that I'm almost 60. And it's my experiences that have led us to really become more bold in what we want to accomplish through our work at the foster care closet. So as we walked through that process, one of the things let me just walk your audience real quickly through how a youth ends up in care, because a lot of people don't know how does this story begin. Somewhere along the line, there has been an incident that has happened that has alerted authorities that maybe a kiddo isn't in a safe environment. It could be that there's been a long period of neglect. We're not talking about, they showed up for school and they didn't have lunch today because mom didn't pack the lunch or dad didn't get it dropped off or whatever. We're talking about they've been coming to school for the last 6 months or more. So I want to be really clear that it isn't, in a situation like that, it's not a quick decision. Or in instances where there's been a physical or sexual abuse identified, those are immediate actions that are taken to protect the youth. So there's something that triggers that call in. Then the proper authorities do their investigation, and it's come down to the kiddo can't stay safely in the environment they're in. So that's the moment that foster care begins for these kids. A lot of people have the misconception that foster care starts after a kiddo has been placed in the foster home. But it really starts the minute that the decision's been made that they can't stay safely in their own home environment. The process of, okay, we now need to go find a foster home that's appropriate. One of the other things that is most often the case is that it's a sibling strip. It's generally not just one child. So when you're asking a foster family to take in a placement, oftentimes there will be 2, 3, 4, 6 kids involved in that case. One of the things that we've done a much better job than when I was in care is that we know that even for the youngest members of our foster care system, trauma really affects their outcomes. And so we've also learned how important that keeping siblings together. We know that if siblings get separated in foster care, that there's greater than 90% chance they'll never be reunited.
Oh my gosh.
So we've done a much better job as a society of understanding how important it is that we keep siblings together, that we place them in homes where they have familiarity, right? Relative placement, someone who's known to the child. We've seen several teachers who have stepped up and said, I'll take them, or daycare providers who've stepped up and said, I'll take them. So those are all really positive things. But again, those are steps that have happened 4, 5, 6 steps down the road. Within those first hours, when a kiddo's coming into care, sometimes, dare I say, oftentimes, we continue to pile on the trauma. Not that we intend to, but we're not being intentional about not subjecting them to additional trauma. What I mean by that is when we say to a youth, we're making this decision because we believe it's in your best interest for this time period. But then we take them and we drop them off with a stranger, and they have nothing to call their own except what they're wearing. We're not reinforcing that that's in their best interest. Like I shared,
it's hard for the kid to see the bigger picture of what's going on.
They're stuck in survival mode, right? As I shared at the beginning, we're passionate about restoring dignity to youth in crisis. And so part of that, how we believe that you restore dignity, is you meet those physical needs that the kids have immediately. Not 48 hours later, not 6 months later when maybe somebody gets a clothing voucher, but immediately, because that's what speaks to the kiddo. It's going to be okay. Yeah. I'm getting the things I need. And it helps them begin to think of it as transitioning into foster care rather than feeling thrown into care. Yeah. If you talk to a lot of people my age, they'll tell you, I was thrown around in the system, right? And the reason they use those words is because that's literally how it was. You were tossed from one home to another until either you were adopted or you aged out. And I know my passion, my desires is that we start to change that trajectory for our youth. And the way that you do that is you meet their physical needs in those first hours that they're entering foster care. So one of the things that we have done is we partner with Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services, and we provide what's called the Foster Haven here in Lincoln. And what that does is it allows our foster care case managers to give us a call when that decision's been made that a kiddo needs to enter into foster care. And then we meet them at the facility. And it's set up a lot like a small apartment. There's a little kitchenette. There's a couch, a beanbag chair. Very comfortable, very friendly, warm environment. And when it's available 24/7 to our case managers. And when they come in, when they give us that call, we meet them there. And the first thing we do is we make sure that the kids get fed. A lot of times this process started at 8 or 9 in the morning, and it's now 4 or 5 in the afternoon. We don't know when the last time a kiddo has eaten. We don't know. We know nothing about what has happened that has brought them to our door. But we want to make sure that we're meeting those needs. So we feed them. And then once they're fed, we help them shop for their 5 outfits of clothing.
So they do get to go to the store themselves and pick out. Okay.
Yeah, that is the other piece that's when we're talking about restoring dignity, that is another piece of what we are very passionate about, is that the kids shop for themselves. In the foster care world, one of the first things kids lose is their voice. All decisions are made for them: who they're going to live with, where they're going to go to school, what friends are they still going to have contact with, when do they get to have visits with their parent, right? So by being able to pick out their own clothing, it gives them a space where they get their voice back.
That's probably the best day of their lives to just go on a little mini shopping spree for themselves.
It is a nice distraction for
Yeah.
them. It can go either way. We have kids who, I've seen teenagers literally just sit down in the middle of the floor and start crying. And it's not over being removed, but they've never had any new clothes.
Wow.
And they don't know how to shop for themselves. They don't know what size they wear. So there's a lot to process
Yeah,
through
it
there.
could be very overwhelming,
Yeah.
I suppose.
And then there are kids who are just ecstatic. There was a situation several years ago where the foster mom brought the little girl in, and when she came in, she was wearing some really grody pajamas, and she had a pair of pink cowboy boots, but the soles were completely wore out. So there were holes on the bottom. So we helped her shop. We learned that her favorite color was red, and her favorite animal was a puppy dog. And we happened to have a red sweatsuit that had a puppy dog image on it. And she fell in love with that. And she tried it on, and she's like, do I have to change out of this? And we're like, nope, you can go ahead and keep that on. And then she got a coat, and she held it up. And it's both heartbreaking as well as endearing. Her words were, I can't wait to show my mom.
Oh, man.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it can go either way when it comes to shopping. But what that experience allows is that they are preoccupied with getting their needs met. And our case managers have the time that they need to make the phone calls, to have the tough conversations. And the kiddos are not overhearing that. So earlier I talked about we pile on trauma. We don't mean to. Anytime a kiddo is taken back to the case manager cubicle, they're sitting just like you and I are sitting here. And they're hearing those phone calls. They're hearing the worst part of their lives in that moment be told over and over, and to strangers. And then on the other end, they hear, well, we just can't take all of them. Or we can take this one, but we can't take that one. And so that's how we continue to traumatize them in those first hours. So we want to be about doing everything we can to remove that element.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a world I'm not familiar with, which is good and bad. You know, like I did not know, like how many people are associated with your
Foster care closet.
how many people are associated
It's a
with
tough
foster
word.
care closet?
We have 2 full-time staff, and I think we've got about 5 part-time
Okay. And so anytime a kid goes in foster care, they basically give you a call.
on the new removals, yes.
Yeah, which is good because I do like the idea of it. So let's go back to you decided to be just a foster parent because you went through it.
That was some of it, yeah.
So how many kids have you fostered?
My husband and I fostered over 20 during the years that we were fostering. And then through that process, we had 4 that came to us when they were little. And the foster care system is not a fast moving system. And so oftentimes kids are in the system for about 2 years or more. And so when you get a baby and it's been 2 years and they're not going to be able to be reunited home, then that bond has already grown between that foster family and that baby. And so it's hard then to take that 2-year-old now and place them in a different foster home. That's where reactive attachment starts to come into play, right? I was bonded to these people and they moved me on to somebody else, right? So we were always very intentional when we could see that a case was going to turn into an adoption story. If we weren't going to be the ones to adopt, we helped transition that kiddo into a home that was. So that's part of it. And then we also worked with teen boys for about 5 years solely with just teen boys. And that was challenging.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I could imagine.
Challenging regardless of the
Roughhousing.
situation.
But the cool thing about working with teenagers, I personally love teenagers. And the cool thing about it is that you can have those deep conversations. And most of them aren't afraid to have them. They want you to be upfront and honest. Hey, if I'm not going home, I need to know that. They want to know what their future looks like just as much as any adult does. And even though it might hurt, they may not understand or how to process that, they still want to know it.
Yeah, treat me like an adult because I'm smart, smart teenagers. I remember being that age.
Okay.
And
I was going to say you remembered being smart. But, okay, so how is this funded? How just purely donations? What do you need?
Yeah, so there's two different ways. As I talked about with the initial removals, those first time that kids are entering into care, we do have a partnership with a DHHS, which means that they help with operational expenses, and there's a one-time reimbursement for each youth that we serve on the clothing side. And then the second piece is we as an organization have made a commitment. We're going to walk alongside these youth throughout their foster care journey. So these kiddos, and this is more tied into how we are statewide, these kiddos we serve twice a year, once during spring, summer, once during fall, winter.
Okay, so this isn't just a one and done thing then
No.
for them. Okay.
No. Oftentimes, we may be the most stable piece outside of a judge to their foster care journey. They may change foster homes. Case manager turnover is high. So a lot of times they recognize us. They're excited to come back and see us. We've now reached the point where we've actually had kiddos who let the foster parents know, hey, we can go shop here. And
sure.
As opposed to the foster parents going, we're going to go here. And that's a huge compliment to the service, is that the kids actually want to come shop.
Yeah.
But what we do is we have our main location here in Lincoln, and then we have a smaller location in Beatrice, and we're getting ready to open a location in Blair. We'll be working with Lutheran Family Services. They were gifted the old Dana College campus up in Blair. So we're going to be setting up a location up there. And then we have a mobile unit that we take out across the state. And so that's how we go to Scottsbluff, Sydney, Grand
Gotcha.
Island, North Platte, Kearney, Norfolk. Those are our main stops right now. And then this year, we're going to be adding a stop in Fremont. And we've been invited by the Winnebago tribe to come serve the foster kids on the reservation. So we're really excited about that opportunity.
This is a full-time thing then.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This is a very, time consuming.
Yeah.
And you never know when.
No. No, on the initial removals, those you always do that
Because it's very
in the
important
moment.
that, like you said, like immediate. So, okay.
And then on the season change and the seasonal wardrobes, those are a little bit more planned. We have hours where we're open for families just to walk in and bring the youth and shop. And then when we go to different locations throughout the state, obviously those are arranged in advance and families are lit. But I wanted to share one of the things, so before I lose my thought again. So for every one youth that we're serving on the initial removal side where we do get the support with DHHS, we are serving 4 on the private funded side. So we have significantly grown in the last 3 years. We've doubled the number of kids we're serving. We've gone from just under 1,000 to over 2,000 last year.
Holy smokes.
I was not expecting that number.
No.
That's insane.
So the private funding is something that we're starting to have to kind of pay attention to. Believe it or not, we've never done a fundraiser. All of our funding on the private side has been word of mouth. People hear about what we're doing and they want to join us in our passion to restore dignity. This year is the first year we're really starting to get intentional about fundraising. We've been able to get our numbers together. We know that it costs on average $350 to serve a youth with one season of clothing. Because we haven't been intentional about fundraising, we also have had opportunity where we maybe haven't paid as close of attention to the donors in the past. So we've had a lot of donor one and dones, right? They donate and then, we probably haven't acknowledged it as much as we should have. And there's hundreds of nonprofits just here in Lincoln, right? And so it's very easy to, if you're not front of mind, that donor moves on to the next thing. So this year we're really, myself, and being very intentional about letting people know what our need is, which is a one-time gift of $350 to help us be able. We're at a point right now where we cannot grow. We cannot serve any more youth than what we currently are serving until we start building up
I'm
fundraising.
sure there's plenty more youth to help.
Yeah. In the state of Nebraska, on average, there's 2,000 kids a year who will enter care. We don't serve all of those kiddos. Not every kid needs to be served. Some kiddos do enter care with the things that they need, or they're going into a placement that maybe has been kind of serving as a placement without DHHS involvement, and now it's needing to take that next step for whatever reason. So they may not need our services, and that's great. We do figure about half of those youth do need our services and would use them if we were available to them. It's harder to serve out in like Scottsbluff, out in the other parts of the state where we're not located. But what we do to serve those youth is we do a Zoom call with them, so they're still picking out their own clothing, and then we ship that clothing to them. So that's how we're reaching out beyond the Lincoln sphere. And so we figure that there's still potential to increase that number by about 500 if we can get there. And then for the continuing support, on any given day, there's about 4,000 youth in foster care throughout the state of Nebraska. Again, we're not expecting to serve every youth, but we figure probably half of those youth. So there's room for growth there too.
So how do people give or find you?
Yeah, so we do have a website, fostercarecloset.org. Make sure it's .org. And then we have a Facebook page. That's really where we're most active. Okay. And you can message us through the Facebook page. You can email us. So we're not hard to find.
Got it.
Well, on a bit of a lighter note for the ending the podcast, since we're Brand Lincoln, we love our city that we're in. What are some fun things you like to do when you're not out helping all these kids with Foster Care Closet?
Yeah, so I'm a huge Husker fan.
Yeah?
I everything Husker. So, true story, I was born here in Lincoln, but I was adopted and raised in Colorado. So I started watching football when I was about 11. And I didn't have any other real roots, so they became my roots back then. So that's kind of where my love for Husker football started. Then in 1993, we moved here. My husband and I had been living in California for the 9 years prior to that. We moved here. Then I fell in love with every sport. I haven't been to a soccer game, but I think I've been to pretty much everything else. Wrestling,
nice.
Gymnastics, basketball, baseball. I love the baseball team.
What am I trying to say here?
No clue.
The voice of the announcer, Craig Estadillo for the baseball team.
Oh, okay.
He's the one that got me involved with DJing and stuff.
It's Joe's mentor.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hi, Craig.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or tell us anything?
I don't think so. I just really appreciate the opportunity
That
to
was
share our
very
message.
informative. That was
real
I had no idea. And we'll definitely try to be a part of it as well.
Thank you.
So, all right. Thanks, everybody.